Okay.
We're pushing for consensus, and I think at the end of the day, there was a realization that you can't bulldoze this thing to all the Kenyans, and I think that's why the president actually stopped reggae. So I'm kind of waiting to see if all the different constituencies of people are actually going to be listened to. You know, the clergies. We've seen the Muslims come out and say that they don't support it. So I'm waiting to see if there's going to be a difference, or maybe it was also just to give us some hope, and then maybe in 3 days they are also going to gazette it. We don't know. But I haven't. My position still is, as a youth and pushing for the youth agenda, I actually am hoping that the things that we have fronted would be taken into consideration.
Emmanuel Omondi says that there's been a lot of handouts being dished out to these religious leaders. And well, not necessarily. That is his opinion, so you cannot question that. In as much as you are pulling that face, you can only agree or disagree to that, and not just them, but technically most of the people who are, opposing or supporting this document. They say it's an affair of handouts. There's no genuineness at all.
Well, Linda, once again, good morning.
Good morning.
I agree to the fact that the process has been halted, and of course there are attribution for people are attributing this kind of they break with different factors. One camp is saying that we cannot begin to collect signatures minus the publication of the bill. The other says there is still need for consultation and the realization that the head of state needs to listen to as many critical voices as possible, so that we do not leave anyone out, especially at this critical moment. I still strongly hold the view and maintain the view that you cannot argue for a constitutional amendment without thoroughly not going through the report that points will lead to the amendment. So well, the move by the head of state, if that is true and if that is valid, I think is very important that the president include and listen to as much voices as possible. Now the question is, how valid are the representation of these points? Now, the Catholic Church, who've had a long history of, pushing for justice in this country, pushing for political inclusion and accountability and freedom, being frontliners to champion for rights of the people ever since the clamor for multi-party democracy. They have come out and they've said it is important for the frontiers of BBI to listen to as much critical voices as possible. Because what we are amending here, we are amending 15 chapters out of 18. That warrants for for inclusion as much as possible. And of course, the meeting with the deputy president, we did not know the details. But again, Kenyans are becoming analysts all of a sudden. When did the meeting between the president and the deputy become news? So we are arguing at quite very interesting times that it's important that we deliberate on here.
Okay, what we'll come to that. I mean, why it is news and why people have to look at it as though it is news. Yet these are people who sit in more or less the same office. When you looked at me while I was saying that, someone is arguing that, it's a game of handouts and all that. At some point in time, I don't want to call them handouts, but last time we had Ben was like, hii BBI imekuja na pesa. So mjipange vizuri vile mtajipanga in different sectors and say, what, let's do whatever it is that we can do in terms of publicizing this, but equally ensure that we get to enjoy what is within this particular kitty. Ben, a game of handouts?
It's very interesting. Unfortunately, we have a nation that to a great extent follows the coin more than the process or the content. And that's why if you ask me, look at some religious leaders. How many of them would swear holding the Holy Quran or the Bible and say in public that I as so and so, or we as this religious group of people have not taken any money from anyone to speak in a particular way about, and I can tell you, if you brought their religious book to them, the bulk of them would not swear holding it.
Okay.
And that's where the problem begins.
Wow.
Because if the bulk of them cannot swear holding that religious book of their own and say, we swear by the Almighty that we have not received any money from any quarter, be it that opposing or that proposing.
Yeah.
Because we are seeing them. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's COVID or not, as long as you can plan a harambe and someone will come and give some coins there, then it's fine. So the BBI, and if these are the leaders now, you can imagine the people who are being led. And one day, the people I told you, who have attended anti-BBI rallies, if I was so to call it, the following weekend, if the pro-BBI people go there, are the same people who will be mobilized, and they will wear the t-shirts that are pro-BBI, and they will dance for BBI, and they will sing for BBI, and they will tell you how BBI is good. And I can tell you, if the following weekend the other camp comes back, and they're the same people who will be wearing a different kind of t-shirt.
Okay.
All I'm saying is we're in a country where we lost morals a long time ago, and the bulk of the people, even what they are saying, if you find out the truth, you'll be surprised.
Right.
Because if religious leaders are not willing to take a holy book and swear that they have not taken money from anyone,
then
now you can imagine the guys who are not religious leaders, what they have done.
Okay,
Yeah.
and Gloria is hopeful amongst many other Kenyans that, you know, are, at least for a moment, there's going to be a conversation revolving around this. You know what Baba says? That, you know, it is okay not to support. And wait at that point where you can declare your support or the fact that you do not support this particular document. Is that a polite way of telling us that there's not going to be a conversation that is going to be pegged towards changing this?
I think that's a very clear message that this was never about building bridges.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very clear. I mean, if you're trying to unite Kenyans, and the same people you're trying to unite are telling you, actually, there's this thing here that we want you to look at. And then you're telling them, actually, this is what I'm giving you.
Yeah.
And you wait for it to go there, you oppose it or whatever. It was never about building bridges. And so for me, that's the communication I've been trying to have with my peers. I wish that they just brought this thing up like Punguza Mzigo. We are just here to amend the constitution. Instead of trying to wrap it up in some sort of, handshake and this and that. If the intention was just clear from the beginning, then Kenyans would actually not be hoping for so much. They would just wait for it like Punguza Mzigo and then, decide we are going to oppose it or we are going to support it. But the fact that we've been told that this is about uniting Kenyans, this is about a 9-point agenda, which most of it comes down to stopping all sorts of, post-election violence or, divisive politics. That's why Kenyans are kind of like approaching it in a way that's not really about the amendment of the constitution. It's like, let's talk. If you want us to agree with these things, then perhaps as pastoralists, give us A, B, C, D. So for me, Raila Odinga has finally, like they always say, the truth always comes out. He's finally said the truth.
I don't know whether Orogo would agree to that, but even with the dissenting voices, we still are, or maybe different sectors, so to speak. You find that there's this sector that speaks the same volume, or they hold the same, what it is that the same office in a way, but we're having differences in regards to this starts from the level of the presidency, where of course we have the DP, arguing otherwise, and the president arguing otherwise. Such is also what we've seen even with the likes of Muslim leaders that were the latest to come and say that this is not what we support. There are others who are like, we are not in agreement to that. This is not the voice of the Muslim fraternity. This is their own voice. So we're getting this confusion that is there. What then does it mean towards ensuring that we are able to get to understand the fate of the BBI moving on? Because reality is that with such confusion, then there are likelihoods that so much intolerance will culminate.
Yeah, and also you coming from a background where we had a very contested referendum that led to this Constitution 2010.
Yeah.
The history about constitutional discourse in this country has always been more of contested, where people really have to take extreme positions. I am supporting, and this is the reasons I'm supporting. I am opposing, and this is why I'm doing that. There is a very nice article over weekend that we weighed in at the start. What would be the implications of a contested referendum? Now, and I agree with what Gloria said. People's political careers are here in the referendum, and they will be either catapulted or they will be frustrated, and that is the outcome. So the history about this is that Raila would not really want to have a national consensus, because this probably would weigh in his political career. Looking at the succession politics of 2022, anybody, any political party, any political leader would actually want to strategize at a position where they take and either triumph or fail, and make it that, you know, is consolidating the votes. And this is where this is headed to. But that, what is the implications of that to the Mwananchi, who is not really at the level at power where the political interests are now? And this is where the critical voices must come in. Now listen, we had the 9-point agenda that talks about inclusivity, that talks about devolution, right? That talks about as much as possible to build a nation that is not contested after the election. So all the report and all the amendments must point to a direction of validity of where these, what are the preamble of BBI. Now listen, that this was it began by a two gentlemen's agreement, right? These are two gentlemen reaching out to each other, having a phase where one was in the government and others pulled an extreme side that caused the country after 2017 election. And we admitted that after 2017, there was, you know, our economy has gone down. There was political intolerance, there was violence. We admit, but that informed the position where two protagonists had to shake a hand and call it that we have to cease fire, and thereafter we have to make the country as peaceful. You know, we are not saying that that is something that is small. It's quite a big in the political landscape. But now, if this has been made a national discourse, why would these two protagonists not allow critical voices to come in and betray the main cause of BBI? This is what we are calling. Now the church, and let me weigh in, that you see the envisionment, the separation of religion from the state. Those who envision that were wise in their own, you know, in their own manner, especially coming from a background where King Suleiman, you know, had to throw a stone and kill Goliath. So we really have to question the validity and the standing points of religious leaders. If that is not questioned, then we suffer, we are risking to a situation where Ben talked about. Where are these critical and valid points, the likes of Alexander Muge, you know, Bishop Okunu, you know, where are they? These are critical voices that should be seamless at this time. Even Timothy Njoya, because the voices that we are hearing from religious leaders are actually voices that can be rented. And that means that clear representation of the people, the principle of representation of the people from a critical voice, we must be.
Okay, well, and we talk about, as we get to wind up on this one, because now we have to go I mean, after all, we'll have time to discuss this more and more. Yes, we know that there are dissenting voices, but equally, the proponents are, you know, also as strong, or so to speak. And for a moment last week, there was that, you know, point where we decided, okay, we're not going to proceed and start the collection of signatures. And many felt like, you know, what this was about, a chance for many to have the conversation moving forward. But from what we get or we gather today is that there are likelihoods that the process start tomorrow. Yes, as a 25th. It should be tomorrow. It's tomorrow on Wednesday. So the question is there much that has happened from that time that it was postponed to now that we can confidently say that indeed the process should go on or start?
Let's say this. The reasons that the BBI Secretariat gave for the postponement of the collection of signatures was that they had not printed the bill. It is not, it's got nothing to do with consensus or anything. They had said they had not published the bill, which is true because it had not been published and we never got to see it. And I think now they have published and they are ready to collect signatures. Then the million-dollar question becomes, is it possible to collect 3, 4, 5 million signatures as they were saying in 7 days? And the answer is simple. On the 26th of October last year and on the 8th of October, 26th of October 2017, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta garnered 8 million votes in one day. And the previous election of the 8th, about 14 million people queued and were able to have, and by the way, look at it this way, every person who voted cast 6 ballots. So MPA, MCA,
Are you trying to
MP,
say
all
that
the way
this is going
6.
to be a smooth process?
So all I'm saying is this.
They have the numbers.
If you multiply 6 ballots, if you multiply 6 ballots by 14 million Kenyans, it tells you that they were able to collect in excess of 70 million
and now Baba
signatures in one
his.
day. So to collect for them, to collect 3-4 million signatures in a week.
In a week? Ouch.
So this is what I was coming to.
Yes.
Now the people who are opposing BBI are very interesting and very sentimental, and they make me laugh sometimes. I see them online. They are saying, do not give money to BBI right now. The priority is COVID. And I've always said, COVID found BBI. BBI did not find COVID.
Okay.
So we need to work around how COVID has come. And I can tell you the US has held elections, having lost 250,000 Americans. Tanzania is holding elections. Democratic processes will not come to an end because a pandemic has come. And let me tell you, no. Let's continue. BBI, let's think about it.
Okay.
If BBI had not come, would probably not even have a nation to be sitting here like this. Remember how this country was. There were people who were saying resist. No, it started with the handshake. The handshake birthed BBI. So we would not probably be here. There were guys who were saying resist. She's probably one of the people who changed her SIM cards and stopped taking Brookside milk. And she's here saying no.
Resist.
And I can tell you, the country was in a bad state.
No, but you cannot. This is that narrative that they keep pushing.
That,
this
we
one
brought together a nation that can actually have doctors who now need PPEs, because then at that time would not even have had medical facilities to start with. So we are at a point where we need to ask ourselves, we have a serious medical problem that has come, that we are losing about 25 Kenyans in a day, though we lose hundreds to malaria in a day.
Yeah.
And we need to ask ourselves, how do we come up with a process that will continue, because BBI is important, whether you like it or not. It's a very important process, by the way.
Hold it right there, Ben. Let's allow them to interject on this, so at least we're able to deal.
It's very unfortunate that people come to national TV to lie to Kenyans. That, if we didn't have BBI, we wouldn't have our country. What kind of a statement is that even? You understand? What are you trying to say? That the sovereign will of the people, it means nothing. That it has to, that two people are the ones who held this country and built it. That all the other hardworking Kenyans like Gloria or whoever is out there who is waking up every day to go and build the nation, that they are nobody and their handshakes and their peace in their own little communities didn't matter. You see, that kind of, yes, by the way he said something about, I was probably one of the people who are resisting the NRM movement. Absolutely. In fact, I led that. Yes. I was part of the people who are leading the youth saying we must stop drinking Brookside and all of that. But I woke up to realize there was no canon. We had to make that canon. I realized actually, this thing that he's talking about, I've been there. I've been a supporter of Raila Odinga.
You were here in 2007, 2008? Yes. Okay.
And my son was born in 2008.
Oh, yes,
so
I remember you mentioned that here.
what post-election violence meant at that time.
Yeah.
And I was part of the people who are really pushing, we are going to canon, this has to happen to maybe Wakurano. But I had to stop for a moment and think, really, where is this canon?
Yeah.
Who is building this canon? Is it only one person who can build that canon, who can take us to that canon? You understand? So at the end of the day, when I hear, like my colleague talking about without BBI, we wouldn't have a country. You're abusing 50 million Kenyans.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're telling them that their thoughts and their hard work, and every day when they wake up to go and hustle, it doesn't count unless former Prime Minister Raila Odinga shakes the hand of Uhuru Kenyatta. We have a country, we will still have a country. And by the way, this fear narrative, that every time you're bulldozing, when you don't get what you're supposed to get, then now you start using fear. Msipofanya hivi, tutafanya hivi, nini, we'll be like South Sudan. We are not buying into that fear narrative anymore. We are not going to buy into anything that is going to push us to a point that we were in 2008. And it's very, very unfortunate that those are the theatrics that Akina Honorable, what was his name, Otiendo Omolo are now using. And that's the communication that is being. We are not going to accept BBI unless you talk about the things that you want us to talk about. And we are not going to reach a point where you're going to start telling us without BBI we have no country, because we are not fools.
Okay, for a moment, my worry then would be, I know we're coming to you, Gloria. Reality is that I know on this very set I've hosted more than almost 50 people that have their own different view and their own different proposals that would want incorporated on the BBI. Yeah. How realistic and practical that can be is a question mark.
It is not realistic and it is not practical that all those views will be incorporated. But if you look, for instance, at what we are trying to push with the youth agenda, we have an issue of unemployment. We are trying to say the issue of unemployment is not going to be solved by tax breaks. Is it possible for you to push a program under internship and under, absorbing some of these youth who are graduates into either a government offices in terms of interns and whatever, or we're even saying instead of having Uwezo Fund just dishing out money that they cannot bring back because that fund is not revolving, is it possible to partner with organizations that are actually pushing for social enterprises that are sustainable so that they can create jobs? You see, when I come with two of those views, which are very basic sane views, when I come with them and you don't even want to think about, okay, actually we have not addressed unemployment, can we possibly take even a quarter of that view? We already have institutions like Uwezo Fund, like Youth Fund, like this. You sit with the youth and tell them, fine, we understand the unemployment is this, we might not be able to take your list of 1,000 things, but here is one thing we can give to you. So it's not practical that they can that we can get all these views from the religious leaders, pastoralists, youth, whoever, and put into one document. Never. But the fact that there is not even the goodwill of sitting down with those people. And it's not, someone said these are just 5 people you can hire. When you look at the Muslim community, you have SUPKEM, you have NAMLEF, you have all those constituency of their leaders have already said no. You want to tell me all of them have been bought? Okay, hold it right there. No. Let's allow Dan come in, and as you, of course, react to what it is that has been said, also introduce us to that talk that we are about to discuss on matters, a revival of the post-election violence talk that we have today.
I am surprised by the sentiments of Ben. I've never seen Ben on this, that kind of sentimentalism. One of the issues that we are grappling with as a nation, and we said it here very well, the coronavirus is a global phenomenon. We agree, Ben. It came at a time when everybody wasn't expecting it, that it has this kind of ramification that we are noting. Every country in the region is having a post-recovery plan. Right. Every country, including the countries that you've mentioned. Now, when you're comparing democracies like USA, and their elections were actually enshrined in their constitution, right? BBI is a process that is yet, it's not anywhere within the legal documents that we are having. In other terms, what I'm saying, that the priorities in this country must be shifted right now. What matters now is that we have a very serious conversation. How are we saving our sinking medical doctors who are even have requested to meet the head of state, on a very, very critical points. They have not been granted permission, but people are meeting to discuss BBI. Even the proponents of BBI, the people who met the leaders of Mount Kenya yesterday, did not even issue a statement about the needs of post-recovery, even about the needs of the plight of medical doctors. What are they fronting? That this must be contested. So you see, our priorities have ever shifted to be very wrong. Let me begin that. Secondly, right now, anybody, and I am taking a position to look keenly through the amendments. I haven't read it all over well and say conclusively that this is what we either reject it or accept. But there are very serious proposals that are there that really needs a national conversation. And I have said, matters that deals with the expansion of the judiciary, matter that deals with interference of judiciary, the independence of judiciary, that must be canvassed, Matters that deals with, expanding the executive, giving a president, powers to appoint, to fire at will, to hire at will, that must be discussed. Matters that touches on devolution. One of the issues that I said here, if we are having people who have been touted as the heroes of second liberation or multi-party, their proposition by that time was independence of institutions like judiciary and IEBC. So if you make a U-turn and poke holes in the independence of commissions like IEBC and judiciary, that listened to your cases in 2017. Okay. I think this is where, as a Kenyan and as a constituency of Kenyans, we really begin to question your intentions and your intentions with BBI and all this document. So for me as a Kenyan, I am still reading the document and, critically reading it with my interest at heart. Because everybody is taking a position. Everybody is taking interest at heart. Yeah. Now, as issues of post-election violence, Linda,
yes,
we have been for some time been on a relief, at least an island of peace.
Yes.
We've offered refuge to our neighbors who are fleeing from Magufuli. Right? And we've accommodated them. Our friends in Uganda who are fighting against oligarchy and octogenarian leaders, pure suppression of people's rights. People are being killed on the streets. People are being maimed, even innocent young people. People who are being... And we saw this in post-election violence in 2007. Yeah. We saw it in 2017.
Right.
The quietness of a country like Kenya right now would be very critical that we discuss this issue. And therefore, we have also begun to follow suit by introducing the cases again. Okay? I am not saying that those who suffered during 2008 post-election violence should not be listened to. Of course, the wheels of justice rolls.
Right.
Pole mpaka tufike hapo. But I am questioning, how are we doing it? I mean, are we doing it with an intention of pointing a finger? Or anybody will say that, I was in Kibera during 2000 post-election. I saw exactly what happened. By that time, we were at the heat of those bullets that were being sprayed up and down. We were at the heat of young children where tear gas are thrown into the house. So we know what we are talking about. So this time, I think the process should be questioned with timing and the intent.
Okay. Well, Kinoti, that is the DCI, argues that we have enough stamina as a country to prosecute these cases. That it does not go. That it doesn't have to go to that level of the ICC or us getting it to different courts. That would be regional courts. I don't know whether we have one that is strong enough to deal with African issues in the first place. So, do you suppose that indeed such is a statement that we can go by?
Let's ask ourselves, and I have always wanted to ask myself this question. If tomorrow I want to vie for political office, are there things in my past that I will have to worry about? Why is Mudavadi not worried about post-election violence? Why is Kalonzo not worried about post-election violence? We need to become leaders who do those things that we shall not be ashamed of tomorrow. What I'm thinking is this. The other day, a few years back, we employed a house girl that we should never have employed in the first place. Because when she gave us her story, theirs was a miserable. They had 17 acres of land in Wasingishu. And they had enough cows and everything. And when they left their home, their father developed a stroke. To date, he's never healed. Because they left land, which today is occupied by a different person, whose name is known. I think what we should be looking at when we are dealing with post-election violence is not the politicians. It is individual responsibility for sins. I came, I killed whoever, I occupied their house, I live in their land. That person should be in prison, and the person from whom that land was taken should be given back their land.
Okay.
Let us look at it purely from that perspective. Out of the 118 cases I have seen, I have not seen a case where William Ruto has been accused of occupying somebody's land or killing someone with a machete. So let us not politicize this issue. There is an Ojwang. Listen. There is an Ojwang, there is a Kamau, there is a Kipkoril, there is an Otieno. Because I'm telling you, there were people who were displaced in Wasingishu. There were people who were displaced in Nakuru. There are people who were displaced in Nyeri. There are people who are displaced in Kisumu. That much you know. Even Kakamega.
Right.
I have friends who lost land in Kakamega and have never gone back because they were Kikuyus. So all I'm trying to say is let's not look at post-election violence from the point of politicians. Let's look at genuine Kenyans who lost land. Can you imagine today you live and you see that was your house which you built and you can't, and you know who is living in that house. So let's deal with it from that angle, because if we do it that way, then there will be healing, there will be justice. But if you start looking at it from the point of we are trying to crucify politician A, B, or C, and then again I ask ourselves as politicians, why do we want to allow ourselves to have a history that will speak ill of us? Look at Mudavadi. Mention anything.
Oh,
he's
okay.
not afraid.
Good.
Look at Kalonzo.
Good.
And I'm not saying he's clean, but I'm saying let us be the kind of politicians who, when every scandal is mentioned, you don't start saying they are targeting me. Ni dam ni mimi. Sijui ni post-election ni mimi. Sijui ni nini ni mimi. Kwani what's wrong with me?
Before we come to Gloria, let's first of all remind ourselves or listen in to what it is that the DCI had to say. And then we come back, see just how realistic it is to even achieve what it is that Ben speaks about, where we're not going to politicize the process and it's going to be fair and square about ensuring that justice is served.
Nakumbuka what happened kwa ile kanisa yetu ilikuwa inaitwa Kiambaa. Pale mtu anamkimbilia Mungu, unamfuata ndani na unaambia huyo Mungu bure. Unachoma, unajaribu mwingine yale amechukua kusema haisuru. Kama ni kufa, hata hii watoto jameni msiue, wasichomekee kwa kanisa. Anatoa nje, mwingine anarudisha ndani. Hata kama walifanya wakati hiyo. Na wengine tunawajua wako kwa starehe kule, walifaulu kwa mashamba ya watu, mali ya watu walichukua, na wengine hata wanapitia juu ya kaburi ya wale waliua. Hiyo tukawaambia leo, msio na wasiwasi yoyote, tafadhali. Inaweza kuwa ilifanyika, mtusamee. Tunawaambia sio tena.
A statement that would sound so simple yet very heavy. And just picking it up from where Ben left it. How possible is it for us to have this conversation without politicizing it, knowing very well that this culminated from politics itself, and knowing very well that we still have the cases of matters ICC that bedeviled the Deputy President lingering on as they await to see whether they can gather enough evidence?
You know, I even talking about this, you know, I see people talking casually about post-election violence. See my colleague Ben talking about it, it's like you wake up and you're going to the shop and then, you know, something happened and then, you know, we'll come back. You know, anytime I hear anyone bringing that conversation of what happened in 2007, 2008, I get goosebumps because I have interacted with victims of post-election violence. And it is not as simple as people are talking about. Justice is not as simple as here is your land, go back inside. These people lost lives, these people lost, some of them are traumatized for life because the things that they saw, the things that they witnessed, and the idea for me, the idea of using a victim of any kind of human rights violation to achieve whatever, to me, it's first of all, it's very inhumane. So when I was even listening to Kinoti speaking, you know, he speaks with such ease about, you know, very simple statements. Watu walifanya hivi and you know, na sasa tunawajua, and you know, it's almost as if he was not in this country when 2007, 2008 happened. It's almost as if he didn't experience that anxiety that any moment now somebody will come to my house and butcher all of us, you know? So for me, first of all, having those kind of conversations being held with such ease, I question every intent of that individual, whether it is Kinoti, whether it is my colleague Ben, whether it is a politician, but I question every time, I question the intent. It's like, what are you trying to achieve with this? And please let me remind Ben, when he's talking about these are victims, they were there, they were in Kiambu or wherever, the places he wants to put. Let me remind him that 2007, 2008 was one incident. If you can go and read the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission reports, and you look at the things that happened then, and you even, you know, one of my family members actually worked for TGRC when they were putting that report together, going to speak to those victims, doing investigations and stuff like that. And till now, she's absolutely traumatized from having to hear those experiences, you understand? And this is not a victim, this is a person who was gathering that information. She's traumatized. Now imagine what any individual would be, what intention they'd be having to come and now pick that victim and tell them, come here, come to this camera here, sema tu venye mulifukuzwa na nini na nini. You get what I mean? So first, if we are truly talking about uniting this country, and if Kinoti is sincere, and if this government is sincere about justice for those victims of violence, whether in 2007, 2008, or those who are even in the Waki report, can they first tell us, what is this conversation we are having? Is it about uniting Kenyans? Is it about achieving justice? Or is it about reviving things for political mileage? And my issue with the statements that came out yesterday really was about, why are we addressing victims of a certain place? Let's talk about all the victims that were affected in Kenya. I'm from Kisii. We have victims of post-election violence in Kisii. Let's see that same energy. I mean, if we're being truly honest about all Kenyans are equal, and whether you are in Uasin Gishu or whether you are in wherever you are equal.
Yeah.
And I heard Mandago speaking, was it yesterday when he gave his press conference? And people were saying, why, you know, this dog that barks, why are you feeling the need to address? And what? He has to feel the need to address that because that's his county, he's the governor.
Yeah.
You understand? So, you know, to even now start questioning why you coming to give press conference, he's the governor of that county. So, I mean, if I'm the governor of Kisii County and someone comes and tells me we are going through the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report, and we have done investigations, and we are found here in this constituency in your county, this is what happened. I will definitely, it is my responsibility as the leader of that county to come up and say, you know, yeah, this is what's happening.
All right.
So I don't think we should handle these conversations with such, you know, it's like, these are lives of people, families, and the weight that we should be having. These are not conversations that Kinoti should just go and give a press conference.
I still go back to that statement that we are capable to handle this and to prosecute some of these cases. A very heavy statement, so to speak. And Dan, I would want to come back to you and ask this. You said that, yes, you witnessed that at that particular time. And sometimes actually it's even better off covered as opposed to us, you know, reviving this, if at all justice is not going to be awarded eventually. But the question then would be, just how much of importance is justice going to be towards quelling the pains and the tough times that people experienced, and you know, those experiences and those traumatizing memories that are in existence? Are we better off focusing much on reconciliation as opposed to focusing, I mean, redemption strategy, as opposed to focusing much on justice, which we know very well the wheels will grind slowly, and the process of getting justice in the country is a nightmare?
Well, you know, actually, I saw the account that Gloria gave. It's this is one of the most slippery, you know, and emotional discussion that the country can ever be roped into, apart from land issue, which is also part of it, by the way. So, Linda, why are we where we are? I think that is the question that we should ask. After the 2007 post-election violence, and after the election, the government was at the National Assembly.
Right.
Members of Orange Democratic Movement had asked the government of the day to establish a special tribunal to prosecute the cases locally. You understand what happened.
Yes.
In some section, MPs from one section of this country rejected and said, don't be vague, let's go
to the ICC.
They say that at the floor of the National Assembly. History, we cannot forget the history of this country. And when we talk about, I think it's important, it's not a good thing to revisit, but it's important for us for lessons. Now, Ocampo named 20, and out of that, six were you know, were asked to appear to answer the pre-trial charges, and of which I think you understand.
We want the other.
The incoming Jubilee government, you know, riding on a manifesto of national unity, the dynamic duo of President Uhuru Kenyatta and DP had actually even made it a very peace pact at Avra Stadium and say, can we cease hostilities? One of the agendas that we want to do for this country in our government is to do what? Is to unite. Come forward. President Uhuru Kenyatta, addressing a nation in the floor of the National Assembly, apologized for the past. And he said he will be responsible for what happened, and on behalf of this country, he is taking that as a personal apology. The government has not stopped there. The government has tried to resettle some of the IDPs.
Yes.
Okay. And even remember, sometimes we you know, Ben and Gloria and Linda, in this panel, sometimes it's important to remind a country where we are and why we can easily slide into anarchy by the statements that we are making, either to support or a rejoinder, either way from political, you know, personalities. So in this country, we are staring to a situation where we overread the factors of national reconciliation processes. Rwanda has done it through Gashasha courts, right? There's a very, very procedural step of reconciliation that even involved restitution, okay? It's the final stage where I think you've seen within the social media where anybody who accused you or anybody who knows where, whoever take the property, the government facilitates. If you're willing to meet that person, you meet and you reconcile. That is a process.
All right.
Okay? So the Jubilee government in 2 terms failed to expedite that process. And then in the final term, decided to unearth the case. You know why it must be political? Because as we speak, Gisheru is at ICC.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Is at ICC and has denied the charges. What does that mean? If any court of law you deny the charges, you are giving a prosecutor time to go and investigate.
Yes.
So where is it going to investigate?
In the
Lastly, Kinoti must take a personal responsibility. If by that time, Ocampo was asking for witnesses, okay? People who knew what happened.
Did not.
And Kinoti did not say, okay, by that time. Let's be very open about the conversation of this country. And right now, he says, these people are known to us. And lastly, Linda, you were saying that, and I looked at that footage. You know, these victims are staring and are looking and are wondering, really. I don't think even the process of recording a statement, unearthing the emotions and pain. Ben, this is not something that we cannot, you know, we cannot really take it easily.
You brought about the aspect of Rwanda, and Felician Kabuga is under trial right now.
Yes.
I mean, don't you think that there's need for us to equally get to the root of this and get the perpetrators? That is what I'm saying,
that we had a process, Linda, and we are not saying that it should not be expedited. I have said justice must be served.
Yes.
But what have I questioned? I have questioned this time that we squandered to expedite a process of reconciliation, which has got procedures. By the way, it can even take 2 decades for us to reach the final destination. But in the process of an election that is coming at 2022, in a process that already polarized currently because of BBI, in a process where we are having an instability in the region, that is something that really needs to be questioned.
Kinoti is in office, he's taking up this, he's probably looking at his timeline in the office. If at all he has to...
so selfish.
You see?
That is so selfish. You know, it's like...
I mean, he has to bring this up when he is...
Imagine that it's about someone's legacy and someone... You're dancing on those graves.
Let's get this
so
right.
Selfish.
I was in this country at that point in time. And I know what was happening. And let's be honest with one another. I'll speak both as a lawyer and as a mediator, because I'm a certified professional mediator by the Supreme Court, by the way. So there are 2 things that need to happen. First, in legal terms, there are those people who outrightly are occupying properties they should not be occupying. Those are people who are supposed to wake up and say, no, I'm doing the wrong thing, before we even go to court. And decide to voluntarily surrender this land and these properties and have a conversation. This is where mediation comes in, with those people whom they took this land from, forgive one another, do whatever rights are usually done if there's need to do so, and exist in peace. But there are those who feel that siezi achilia na sitaacha, wakwende wafanye vile watafanya. Now those ones cannot go through a mediation process. It has to go through a legal process. Because even as you bring about BBI or you talk about whatever you talk about, there's a Kenyan out there crying and saying, there is no country, there is no justice in this country because nilinyang'anywa ng'ombe zangu na kuku zangu na mpaka leo mimi naishi kama squatter and mnasema kuna serikali. These people hawatambui serikali, whatever you do. We need to listen to those people. I need to correct my friend here and tell her, the 118 cases are not all from Uasin Gishu. Not unless the DCI has told you he's doing 118 cases from Uasin Gishu. These 118 cases are coming from all over the country. And these are people who had filed cases even then saying nilinyang'anywa hii, nilipigwa na huyu. They even gave names of the people who mistreated them. Let us be honest enough as a nation to start doing things. Not this tanga maneno of consultations. They never have a firm position. And there's nothing as bad as dealing with ambivalent people, amorphous. They never tell you this is what we want. They tell you what they don't want.
Okay.
And there's nothing as bad as asking your wife, what do you want? I tell you, I don't want black shoes. I didn't ask you what you don't want. I asked you what you want. And let me finish this. Let me finish. No, I'll continue.
Let me ask you a question. If we are talking about being honest and bringing justice to these victims, why have we never implemented the TGRC report? And it has a very clear implementation mechanism that is not rocket science. And it was packed and put aside, and the only thing I'm being referenced is that the Building Bridges initiative on page 16 said that we must implement TGRC. You see what I mean? So for me, let's stop. At one point, we have to stop.
It's a question you were asking.
Okay, wait, hold it right there. Let me moderate. In this case, now that the question is asked, hold it right there. So please gather enough forward so at least you can get to answer her after analyst. We still have Daniel Lurogo, convener, Kenya on the Move, and political commentator. And we also have Ben Kinoti, who's a lawyer and also a political analyst. And here we are. Ben, we were with you. And I mean, the question is clear. If we're talking about justice, we're talking about reconciliation, we're talking about, ensuring that these people have what it is that is theirs recovered. Then she questioned, why didn't we implement the TGRC report?
I'll tell you this. First and foremost, as a lawyer, for criminal matters, there's no limitation. That's why you saw some people go to court and file a case against the British government for the atrocities committed during the Mau Mau period. And I never heard people saying that this is untimely, it's trying to hoodwink the British government to think in a particular way, and they were compensated. So for criminal matters, there is no time limit as to how long you can take or when you can bring a case to court about this. But let's look at the reasons why people seek justice. There are many, but one of them is to punish the wrongdoer, and the other one is to prevent such instances. Unasikia koti ikisema ili iwe funzo kwa wengine wenye tabia kama hizo. That's to deter. There are times when, like now, we need to get a hold of those people who killed and maimed, not because we want them, but because we want others around them to see and learn that it is wrong to kill and maim because you can go to court and you can go to jail for it. Because if we do not deter, then what happens is they have created a precedent. Si jirani yangu aliba baskeli ya huyu na tunamuonanga akitembea nayo huku na hakuna kitu ile happen. But once they start saying apana aliba baskeli na sasa ako shimo la tewa, then it brings that thing of we are deterring people from doing the wrong thing. The timing, if you ask me, it could be wrong. But is there a right time to get justice really? Is there a bad time to get justice really? I think as long as we are going to try as much as possible, and I hope Kinoti will do this, to separate that process from politics.
Right.
I know it came from politics, but let us not look at this process in the light of ni mwanasiasa fulani alifanya. Let us look at it in the light of Jambi lost her land, or Otieno lost his life, or so-and-so lost this, and that loss was occasioned by so-and-so. So this person who occasioned this loss carries that as an individual.
I was trying to get his
and if they do that,
why? Because he's just done a lot of this. The TGRC stands for truth, first of all, finding the truth, getting justice, then reconciling, okay? And then life after.
We are talking about Kinoti.
Now, I was asking, because he is saying that, there's no timeline for justice. And anytime anyone can come up and akumbuke alifanyiwa something, and this is what is happening. I'm saying sincerely, if this government is about reconciling or bringing justice to those victims of post-election violence, we have the TGRC report. And that report is very detailed. It's very detailed. I've read it. It's very detailed. It has an implementation mechanism. Forget even the TGRC. We have the WACO report. Again,
you see why people like have pass exams.
And at the end of the day, now you're bringing the Building Bridges initiative report, where now they're pointing out, let's implement this, let's implement. my point is, this government, the Jubilee government, if indeed that we are trying to unite people and bring justice to these victims of post-election violence, then we should be seeing some consistency in the manner with which they are handling all these issues.
All right.
And by the way, every time someone says the name of, every time you mentioned earlier that William Ruto was not mentioned here or any. I want to remind guys, William Ruto did not go to ICC alone.
Yes.
Yeah, they are conjoined.
Yes.
He didn't. So when you bring that up, ask yourself, what are you bringing up?
Okay.
Yes.
Well.
But this is what I was coming to. This is what I'm trying to do.
No. Time is not on our side. Let's allow
30 seconds. 30 seconds. This is what
better
I'm
be 20.
Yes, okay. I'm just responding to her. It's very simple. She needs to understand. And this is why people fail exams. We've been brought a clip about Kinoti talking about post-election violence, criminals and victims. Now she's bringing TJRC.
So it doesn't matter. Are you saying it doesn't matter the process?
Ile siku wataongea mambo ya TJRC tutadiscuss hiyo. We have our exam.
Okay.
It's the clip. We are focusing on the clip. Let's deal with it.
Dan, wind up on this one.
Now, I think that's why I've said
Make it brief, yeah.
the insincerity of this government with expediting matters of justice. I think I still insist that the timing is very wrong.
Right.
And remember, last weekend, NCAC again had actually given a report of emerging conflicts or militia groups that are actually getting ready to be used for 2022
elections. Yes.
Now I in effect agree that justice, I'm still saying that justice, those guys, Ben, they must get justice, but I am also saying, is it devoid of political undertones?
Okay.
Especially as we head to election. That is only my very little concern. Now, can we hold the president to account? What did you apologize for?
Okay.
Okay.
Why?
That is my biggest question. If an office.
Which apologies? This
all right.
The one that he made at
yes, we are sorry generally.
The state of the nation.
Yeah.
So I think we really need to get to the facts about this and don't leave this issue to the politicians because he's getting. But of course, it's a political issue. So we really need to be very wary of what Gloria has actually said.
Yeah.
If we are actually, inviting ICC, and I think this is where it's headed to again.
Yeah.
Remember, those cases are conjoined, and
you should
even
know what
if
it
could be a turn for a certain individual now,
Yeah.
but justice will still catch up with another individual.
Okay, hold it right there. There's so much that we need to discuss about this, but time would not allow us. Of course, we're talking about the fact that ICC might just decide to capitalize on this. We're talking about how best we can be able to handle this. I mean, the road to African or most of the African countries exiting ICC, because the conversation has been there, and how they actually deal with our cases, whether it's with bias or they're genuine, and of course, the witness protection program, which is crucial at this particular point. We're not going to delve deep into that, but we look at it, it's a developing story. And because time is not going to allow us to ponder more on the two other subjects that I had picked on matters COVID and, of course, the aspect of the terrible pictures that we see today about our youths and our teens. I think I'll just allow you, say, 30 seconds to give your sentiments on that. Our morals are collapsed to that level? Untold stories that have been in existence anyway. Have parents failed? Now the teachers are busy saying that, so it's happening.
In very simple terms, our teens are following what their mothers are doing.
Ouch.
The bulk of this.
Yeah?
Yes, and fathers.
Please,
What they have, yes.
that statement for a second.
One second. Linda,
Ben,
our
really?
teenagers are following what their parents are doing.
Thank you.
Right now,
Thank you.
this is what I was getting. Okay. No. Look here, Linda. Hashtag tuko K1 mpaka 5 asubuhi. Hashtag look at the Facebook pages and Instagram pages of the parents who are in their 40s because they are the mothers of teens today.
Yeah.
In fact, thank God for the curfew. They were staggering or driving home at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So the kids, and you have a bar in the house. Most modern houses now have a small section you call the bar in the house.
Yeah.
So what do you expect of your child? I think, and I can tell you the bulk of these are from parents who are living that kind of lifestyle I'm telling you. Hashtag we drank until 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So that is what they are following. That is what they are doing. And unless the parents change, is just a mirror of themselves. In fact, wanajiangalia hata vile wazazi wenyewe wanavaa ni vile watoto wanavaa. I can't blame the kids.
Do you know that's first of all, his statement from the beginning will just tell you the kind of person that he is, because mtoto akikuwa mbaya ni wa mama yake. Because that's where he started the statement from. But then I'm actually from of a different opinion. Yeah. Personally, I take alcohol. Yeah. And yes, I do have a corner in my house where I have my alcohol and I sit and I drink it there. And I don't think that is the issue. Because in fact, if you see the children, I'm pretty sure if we go now and we do some kind of investigations, those children who are found in that party, you will find half of them, their households are, their parents are pastors, they are very restricted in everything, which is why they feel the need to sneak out of their houses or lie that they are going for a Bible study sleepover, and then end up in those places. So it's a blanket statement to say that these are because of their parents. And you'll actually find that most parents whose lifestyles are what he's trying to paint the picture of. They are outgoing, because there's nothing wrong about being outgoing and being social. They are going to these places of engagement. There's nothing wrong with that, because I also don't question those who spend their time all day in church. That is what they feel is what they like to do. You'll find that those kids who come from those households, because they've seen probably the effects of alcohol, because they've seen or they have interacted with these things that are, you know, cigarettes, alcohol, they actually are aware, they are way more aware that this thing actually is not good for me. So you'll find those children are more disciplined than those coming from the households of religious leaders and strict parents who are locking their kids up, and that's why they are sneaking out. So I think what we should be talking about is the responsibility of the parents, which has clearly been seen that since schools have been closed, they kind of were pushing that responsibility to teachers. And suddenly they have been left for 8 months with their own children, and they don't know what to do with their kids. So what we should be talking about is, how do we sensitize these parents who are not aware on how to parent? How do we help them? Not castigating and saying it is their mothers. So what we drink, my son doesn't drink.
Done. You know, psychologists will attribute that to breaking down of the family institution, and when it comes to matters of socialization. And I'm trying to weigh in with my colleagues and trying to get a balance. The thing is that it's the virus has exposed the challenges that the family faces when it's upbringing and socialization. And as Gloria has captured is that you see from parents who didn't have much time to socialize their children, now you are given 8 months to deal with them, and then you realize that school was playing another very critical role in terms of bringing up the children. And now that they are closed, you really don't know exactly how to go about that. So there was a discussion on how to introduce sex education, and the religious institution actually said this is not something that we would actually allow to happen. And all cadres of society are not open to that kind of socialization, or rather education. So what I can actually deal with right here is that, can we begin to resocialize our institutions? Like, what is the role of religion in acculturation? What is the role of schools? What again is the basic unit in the society as a family when it comes to institutionalization? Lastly, the 21, the 14, tomorrow will be leaders. In the assemblies, and we'll be asking, how then did we end up here?
That's an interesting one to end on. And thank you so much, Gloria Roba, Youth Policy Analyst. It was good having you this morning. Daniel Orogo, Convener, Kenya on the Move, and also a political commentator. And lastly, Ben Kinoti, whom I had right from the time I started up until now. Thank you so much for choosing to be with us. And that's where we get to wind up this conversation. Up next, a different conversation altogether on matters of digital transformation in the world of business after this break.